Hi, everyone. It's good to see everyone's
Hello.
face. It's always fun when we get to the amount of people that we're going to more than one screen and we can arrow over to see the rest of their faces. I'm Lori Dawson, and along with Meetup co-chair Sherry Gray and the board, we welcome you all. If anyone's on this call who's not a member of the league, we invite you to join us. You can go to our website and you can click on the red join button to get information about joining the League of Women Voters. I want to always express my appreciation to the board for all the work they do. And also let everybody know that board meetings are open to all members. They're held on the first Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Currently, they're online. So you can email the president@LWVSaratoga.org email address to get the Zoom link. Check our website for upcoming events and look for those email announcements that come out from the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County for actions that are taking place and also events. Much appreciation to Chris Alexander for maintaining our website and to Linda McKenney for sending out our email announcements. Even when she's summering or wintering somewhere, she always gets them out on time. I just want to point out a few events. Go to our website. There's two, a part 1 and a part 2 of how women won the right to vote. That's being held online March 16th and 23rd in the afternoon. That's being put on by the New York State Museum Library Archives. So I thought people might want to know about that. Also, I would like to remind people that there's a book club, and you can go on our website under events and look at the different books that are coming up. And those meetings take place on the second Thursday in the afternoon. So you can register for that. Sometimes they're in person and sometimes they're online. So you just have to look at that online and see at our website where they're at this particular month. And then our next meetup is on April 12th, which is the second Wednesday, not the third Wednesday. So make sure you check your dates for that, because we threw a loop. So make sure you don't miss the second Wednesday for the April meetup, which is on electrifying the Empire State with all electric emission-free homes. We tend to have our April meetup be some sort of environmental theme in honor of Earth Day. So please join us for that meetup. We think of meetups as a way for us all to come together to explore, understand, and advocate for issues that matter to us. They are focused on our members and their interests. Please invite friends to join us for any of our meetups. They're open to everyone. And generally they're held on the third Wednesday unless noted. All right, a few reminders about our Zoom registration agreement. Let's give our attention to the speaker. And we always like to remind people that we like to welcome different points of view without judgment. Let's stay muted unless called on to speak, and give space for others to talk before speaking again. Barb Thomas has asked that we hold the questions until the end. So she'll do the entire presentation, and then we'll have questions and comments and discussion. I'm going to be running the video for Barb. Be patient with us. We did 2 rehearsals. And tonight it was already acting up in a different way. So be patient with me. I'm going to do my best to honor Barbara's work. So let me turn it over to Barb Thomas, who's going to give us our presentation tonight.
Can you show the screen? Ah, good. Hi, This presentation uses ideas and exact wording taken from the website of the Union of Concerned Scientists. I am Barbara Thomas, a longtime league member with no particular expertise in counteracting disinformation. Next slide. I have a subscription to Catalyst, a magazine put out by the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I was struck by the practical tips they published about how to fight disinformation, and I want to share their research with you. I've put a lot of links into the chat, so you don't have to try to write anything down while this presentation's going on. I want you to meet Sabrina, who will start us off on tonight's topic with a brief overview. Next slide.
If you found a nasty piece of trash outside, would you run around showing it to everybody you ever met? Then why do it when you find trash online? Underhanded political operatives and other bad actors clutter our social media feeds with lies and other garbage to manipulate us into taking unhelpful action or no action at all on issues that affect our lives. And each time you engage with garbage, whether it's sharing, retweeting, quote tweeting, commenting on, or liking it, you're actually boosting its visibility, regardless of why you're showing it to other people. So how can we take out the trash online? Whenever possible, report accounts and content that violate social media policies instead of engaging with them and giving them a bigger audience. As for other misleading mess that doesn't quite violate platform guidelines, we can't always get rid of it, but we can help obscure it by sharing more of what we want to get seen. So let's amplify people who actually deserve a broader audience. Let's make and share content that shows people what they can do to solve pressing issues like climate change and threats to our democracy. The more often we take out the trash and share useful content instead, the healthier our social media feeds become. Join me and the Union of Concerned Scientists to develop the knowledge, skills, and discipline we need to defeat disinformation online and everywhere else.
Next slide. First, the bad news. No amount of finger pointing is going to help convince someone that they're wrong if they've already fallen into the disinformation trap. Presenting facts and evidence to counter a lie doesn't often work either. Next slide. Okay, the good news. Once you've identified disinformation, there are evidence-based ways to protect yourself and the communities you belong to from disinformation. Using these tips, you can stop disinformation spread, minimize its damage, and respond to it effectively. Next slide. Sharing is not caring. When you encounter a piece of disinformation, the most important thing you can do is to stop it from spreading. That means do not share disinformation. If you see disinformation on Facebook, don't share, comment on, or react to it. If you're on Twitter, resist the temptation to retweet, quote tweet, or share a screenshot. Why? Even if you're pointing out that it's wrong, spreading the disinformation helps further the goals of the bad actors behind it. How? By using algorithms. When you share, react to, click on, or otherwise engage with disinformation on social media, even to mock or debunk it, you're telling a social media algorithm that the item is popular. This encourages the algorithm to spread it and similar content more widely, so it appears more often and in more people's feeds. And when a lie is repeated and seen multiple times, people unintentionally begin to accept it as truth due to their increased familiarity with the false claim, a phenomenon known as the illusory truth effect. Sabrina will recap some of the points we've covered and introduce some strategies we can use. Next slide.
Hello. I'm Sabrina Joy Stevens, a movement builder, storyteller, and strategist based in Washington, D.C. I've had the honor of contributing to some of the most impactful movements and campaigns of the past 2 decades, including serving some of America's leading labor and civil rights organizations. I've also spent much of the past few years doing the real-world work of countering disinformation alongside experts in the field. Now, I'm taking what I've learned from those experiences and training others on how we can communicate more strategically so we can neutralize disinformation campaigns while promoting our own campaigns for justice, democracy, and the environment. While anyone can be honestly mistaken about something and unknowingly spread misinformation, disinformation is false or misleading information that bad actors intentionally spread in order to manipulate people. Disinformation is a global problem, but the bad actors responsible for it are a very small subset of the global population. That means they can't succeed without tricking the rest of us into helping them. Fortunately, it is possible to inoculate ourselves and others against the harms of disinformation. As more of us learn and teach others how to develop the awareness and discipline we need to embed inoculation tactics within every aspect of our organizing, we can help build our community's defenses against disinformation. Please note, when I refer to bad actors who wage disinformation campaigns, I'm talking about political and economic actors who hoard power and wealth by manipulating people into taking actions against our individual and collective best interests. They do this in a variety of ways, all of which tend to be variations of the same 3 political manipulation tactics: divide and conquer, or attempts to foster conflict that keeps people from banding together or incites them to fight each other instead of unjust policies and practices. So think of things like culture war campaigns that pit different kinds of people against each other so they don't unite to strengthen democracy or achieve economic justice. There's mislead and misdirect, or attempts to trick people into making bad decisions or perpetuating harmful systems by lying to them. For example, think of fossil fuel profiteers who sow confusion about the climate crisis in order to delay meaningful action. Then there's overwhelm and exhaust, or efforts to inundate people with so much negative information that they give up trying to do anything. Because we outnumber the bad actors sowing chaos in our communities, we have considerable power to neutralize their efforts over time. So let's dig into some practical ways we can do exactly that. Trust is essential for our ability to come together and solve problems with different kinds of people. But public trust in institutions is very low as a result of past and ongoing discrimination in our society. Unfortunately, those realities also empower bad actors to exploit true stories of discrimination and abuse in science, government, and elsewhere to exacerbate well-founded mistrust among people, especially Black and Indigenous people here in the US and all over the world. When science advocates don't acknowledge and address those concerns, bad actors use that silence to undermine the legitimacy of all authorities and institutions and the valid information they provide. As much as we may want to rely on just the facts to win over skeptical members of the public, the facts alone have no power if the people we're sharing them with don't trust that we're telling them the truth. Remember, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So here are some ways to convey that you care and rebuild trust in individual conversations. First, keep a calm, non-judgmental attitude. Prioritize empathy over expertise. Look for points of connection, for example, love of community, love of future generations, shared faith, etc. Look for and acknowledge their underlying concerns, and then use your expertise to explain the truth in a way that speaks to those underlying concerns.
Next slide. Protecting ourselves and others against disinformation works like immunizing ourselves against a virus. If we are on guard against disinformation and we alert others to it, research shows that we tend to think more critically about the information we are encountering. Just hearing these sentences has already helped build up your defenses. But remember, Don't warn others by sharing specific points or examples of disinformation, even if it's to debunk it. Instead, alert others to watch for and expect disinformation on a specific topic or from a specific source or sources. That way, people will be primed to be more watchful and to think more critically when they encounter related claims. Next slide. Instead of sharing disinformation, amplify accurate stories and information from trusted and credible sources. This reduces the ability of falsehoods to spread and helps drown out the noise of disinformation with more reliable information. If you do feel compelled to respond to a specific point of disinformation, one method that can help is popularly known as the truth sandwich. Cognitive linguist George Lakoff proposed this strategy for media reporting on disinformation, but it can work for anyone. To make a truth sandwich, begin and end with the facts and layer a reference to the lie in the middle while making it clear that it is a lie. Next slide. Here's one example. Much heavier snowfall in regions where winters were historically mild is a sign of climate change. Some climate change deniers falsely claim that increased snow must indicate a cooling world, but climate change makes extreme and erratic weather more likely, and in some cases, more severe. Another way to do this is to lead with some shared values, reference possible disinformation without repeating it, and instead focus on the real solutions. Next slide. Here's that example. We all want to ensure a healthy planet for our children, and while our individual choices do matter, they need to be made in concert with real systemic changes. Climate change is solvable. We have the technologies, we have the science. We now need the leadership and the courage to change course. Sabrina reiterates ways that we can deal with the disinformation and bad actors. Next slide.
Bad actors are outnumbered, so they work hard to trick others into spreading their messages, even those of us who know they're false. One of the most important things we can do to help fight disinformation is to stop spreading it and to amplify better ideas instead. For example, bad actors exploit misguided attempts to warn people about bad information, like when someone shares a link to a misleading article to explain why it's problematic, or tries to debunk disinformation by quote tweeting it. They also exploit our bad habits, like our desire to mock people we dislike or disagree with, to get us to spread content that we'd be better off ignoring or reporting to social media platforms. So what should we do when we encounter false information? Every situation is different, but here's a general framework to help guide your decision making. First, take a moment to consider the potential impact of the false information. Are people's rights or safety at risk, like when bad actors try to confuse people about upcoming elections or the climate crisis? Or is it something less consequential, like inflammatory statements made by professional provocateurs, such as like the idea that companies who send inclusive holiday greetings are waging a war on Christmas? Those things that are used to distract us from more important conversations. Then do your best to assess how widely the disinformation is spread. Is it circulating in the mass media or highly visible on multiple social media platforms? Or has it only been shared by a few people and with a limited audience? Once you have a sense of the content's impact and its spread, you're in a much better position to choose how to respond. If the content is high impact and high spread, you want to inoculate, expose, and report it whenever possible. Work with your networks to spread accurate information and expose the bad actors responsible for the disinformation without repeating it. If the content violates social media platform policies, report it. If it's high impact and low spread, you want to inoculate and report. Work with your networks to spread accurate information in case they encounter the problematic content, but be careful not to draw additional attention to it. Report the content if it violates social media policies, or reach out to trusted organizations who may be able to work in the background to get the content taken down. If it's low impact but high spread, ignore and inoculate. Don't engage with distractions. That gives it a broader audience. Work with your networks to keep sharing more important information and encourage your networks to avoid clicking, sharing, bookmarking, commenting on things that are intended to upset and distract them. And if it's low impact and low spread, engage strategic silence. Ignore it and it will go away. Stay focused on spreading your own message. Do not get sucked into spreading theirs. Maintaining response discipline takes focus, especially when you see a piece of information you know is wrong and you want to make things right. But you have to remember that one of the goals behind misinformation and disinformation is to mislead people and misdirect our attention. By becoming more intentional about how you navigate your information environment, you can make sure that the bad actors don't successfully misdirect you, while also protecting your overall mental and emotional well-being.
Next slide. Next. If you encounter disinformation on social media, flag it for the social media platform where you see it. Social platforms all give users the power to flag content that violates their guidelines, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. There are links in the chat to help you learn how to report directly to the social media platforms, how to report to trusted messengers in the voting rights space, and how to report hate. Next. Building relationships through one-on-one conversations over time has proven to be a highly effective way to inoculate others against disinformation, share credible information, and mobilize people into action so that solidarity grows and disinformation campaigns are thwarted. Think about using this technique, particularly for family get-togethers. Relationships must be built and strengthened with family members, friends, and community members to have solidarity against the bad actors who use disinformation to divide, distract, and demoralize communities. Be patient with people in your life who have bought into and are amplifying disinformation. Often, they're reacting from fear or other negative emotions. Of course, some people are not operating in good faith and are too firmly entrenched in disinformation to be moved. Don't expend your precious energy and time on those who will only drain your energy. Next slide. Disinformation campaigns seek to divide, distract, and overwhelm those of us who are working for real change. But remember that those of us who value protecting our planet and each other vastly outnumber those bad actors who seek to maintain and benefit from the status quo. Indeed, this is why they resort to lies. Their priorities and values just aren't as popular as on their own. You have to remember how much power you have individually to make change and how much power we have collectively. Stay focused on what you care most about and how you can help these causes. And don't get bogged down or distracted by disinformation. Instead, focus on highlighting things people can do to advance the change you want to see. And share these disinformation fighting strategies and any of the additional resources that you find helpful with loved ones and community members who could use them. Because when we diminish disinformation's power, we build up our own. Sabrina stresses communication techniques to focus on. Next.
One reason why bad actors frequently succeed in sowing confusion is because people with better information don't always know how to communicate it effectively. But with awareness and practice, we can close some of the communications gaps that bad actors exploit to misinform people. So let's talk about some of the most common pitfalls science advocates struggle with in our communications. Then we'll talk about how to correct them. The first pitfall we'll unpack is centering facts and statistics over storytelling. Now, please don't mishear me on this. Facts and statistics are incredibly important. Well-researched evidence is critical for policy design and implementation, but on their own, facts and statistics are simply not sufficient for public communications. When we talk about data while bad actors tell false stories about people, we lose. fMRI studies and related cognitive research consistently affirm what teachers and storytellers have known for centuries. Human minds rely on stories to make sense of reality. So when we emphasize isolated facts instead of coherent stories about the issues we face, we make it harder for people to understand and connect to what we're talking about. This leaves audiences vulnerable to manipulation by unethical storytellers. The next pitfall to be aware of is telling doom and gloom stories. A growing number of campaigns and causes now understand and embrace the importance of storytelling in our communications. Unfortunately, many advocates lean on what I call doom and gloom stories, which may help people understand what's wrong, but doesn't necessarily show them how they can change it. If our communications send the message that the problems we're organizing against are unsolvable, that makes our calls to action seem pointless. This also helps bad actors' efforts to overwhelm and exhaust people into giving up instead of taking action to promote causes that matter. Another pitfall we need to address is myth busting and being reactive instead of moving our own agenda. It's important to address bad information, but taking a reactive approach to opponents' provocations and focusing on fact-checking and myth-busting their assertions further amplifies their agenda instead of building ours. Exploiting this tendency is actually built into their strategy because it puts us in the position of amplifying their mis and disinformation while distracting us from our core messages and overarching goals. So especially if you see the myths versus facts, you'll notice that the myths are often so big where the facts are really tiny in comparison. It's really hard to follow. The next pitfall for us to examine is manipulating audiences through fear and anger. People are already angry, afraid, and overwhelmed, yet many campaigners mistakenly believe that they need to deliberately stroke outrage or anger in order to drive actions. But piling onto the negativity that's already pervasive in this information environment is not only harmful to our audience's mental health, it's also a strategic misstep. Fear-driven communications often make audiences feel so overwhelmed that they shut down and do nothing, while stoking anger contributes to the compassion fatigue and burnout over time. All of that is bad news for campaigns that need to help people take sustained action to make long-term changes. Another pitfall we want to carefully avoid is using the passive voice. Many of the problems we're organizing against didn't just happen. People made decisions that resulted in bad outcomes. But when we don't name the people and social dynamics responsible for those circumstances we face, we confuse our audiences and make it harder for them to understand how they can take action to solve the problems we're discussing. We also give cover to decision makers who undermine our community's well-being, and we run the risk of making our solutions appear mismatched to the problem. So for example, when we say things like global temperatures have risen versus human activity, including burning fossil fuels and clearing forests, has raised global temperatures. When we use the passive voice in our communications, we also inadvertently blame victims of identity-based discrimination for the discrimination that they face. When we just name disparities in outcomes without naming who and what is responsible for those disparities, we make it seem like a person's identity is responsible for the problem instead of the people and institutions discriminating against them on that basis. So for example, marginalized communities have high instances of asthma and other chronic illnesses. It's a passive construction, whereas politicians choosing to build power plants and route trekking corridors near marginalized communities has led to higher instances of asthma and other chronic illnesses in those communities. Big difference. The last pitfall I want to warn us against is overestimating opposition and underestimating our power. Bad actors capitalize on our perpetual underdog messaging because it often leads us to amplify the idea that they're more numerous and powerful than they actually are, which helps them to manipulate would-be action takers into giving up hope. So for example, there's a number of people who support climate action and a very distinct minority who don't. But we tend to overfocus on the people who don't at the expense of mobilizing the people who do. Bad actors use money and influence to cover for the fact that they're outnumbered. So when we say things like money always wins over people, we reinforce the idea that we need their help or agreement to catalyze positive change, even though we already have enough supporters to make the changes we need if we focus on mobilizing them in more transformative ways. And even in places and issues where our causes don't yet have majority support, it's our goal to build enough support to become the majority. We can't do that if we communicate that what we want to accomplish is impossible or that the bad actors are too powerful to overcome.
Next slide. Lori, can you
Yeah,
get to the next?
there you go.
Aha. How disinformation works. Human psychology makes all of us vulnerable to disinformation campaigns. And it's not shameful to be fooled by disinformation. The way we're wired as humans makes us all vulnerable to believing, sharing, and perpetuating disinformation, especially if it reinforces a strongly held belief, value, or assumption that we hold. And purveyors of disinformation are often masters of deception. The real shame is on the bad actors who benefit from such lies. Research has shown that the same network of bad actors spreads disinformation across multiple issue areas: climate change, democracy, racial justice, and pandemic response, among others. Who creates and amplifies disinformation? It doesn't just happen on its own. A broad and interconnected network creates and enables its spread. And some of the most powerful and enduring lies come from just a few well-funded and powerful sources. Examples of groups that actively spread disinformation include the American Legislative Exchange Council, and named for its initials as ALEC, and large fossil fuel companies and their lobbying groups, such as the American Petroleum Institute, API, who work hard to sow doubt on climate change and erode trust in democracy. Groups like the Koch Network, Council on National Policy, and U.S. Chamber of Commerce enable groups like ALEC, API, and media executives to sync up on strategy and messaging. Together, they work in coordination to divide communities and distract and demoralize those trying to achieve change. Their goal? To keep profiting and benefiting from business as usual, and to shape political leadership and institutions. Next slide. Misinformation happens when false information is shared out of ignorance or by error. Disinformation happens when false information is shared on purpose for a reason. Next. We all make honest mistakes. A classic example of misinformation in U.S. history occurred in November 1948, when a Chicago newspaper sent its papers off to print before presidential election results were fully counted. The paper's staff, in a rush to print, approved the front page headline, "Dewey defeats Truman." While the newspaper had misinformed its readers, its staff hadn't done so in a deliberate attempt to deceive. They quickly cleared up the mistake by reprinting the paper with the correct results. Some people, interest groups, and organizations benefit from people not knowing the truth, and they create or spread untruths, or simply don't bother to set the record straight for their own personal, financial, or political gain. Next. For an example of disinformation, we can look to a more recent U.S. presidential election. Joe Biden won the 2020 election. This result was clear after multiple recounts in several states. However, numerous bad actors have deliberately spread lies to convince people otherwise. This disinformation is still circulating. Very few influential people who publicly claimed that President Biden lost have acknowledged the truth. And it's because they stand to gain from a lie. Next. So how can you stop disinformation? The first stop is knowing it when you see it. If you come across a controversial claim, whether it's online, in your mailbox, or in the media, ask yourself the following questions. Next slide. Is it difficult to separate facts from opinions? Does it fail to cite experts from reputable organizations? Is the original source of the information hard to pin down? Does it confirm your beliefs or play to your emotions? Does the group, person, or organization sharing the information have a stake in the claim? Financial, political, or otherwise? Does it require belief in a secret plot and a group of co-conspirators? Does it scapegoat people or groups? Is it spread by someone who recently started their social media account, but has a lot of followers? If you answer yes to one or more of the questions, you may want to do further research to figure out who's creating or pushing the information and whether they're trying to manipulate you with lies or misleading information. Whether the motivation is straightforward, such as profiting directly from untruths, or harder to discern, such as sowing division, doubt, or chaos. Someone always benefits from disinformation. The goal of disinformation, remember, is to confuse and manipulate the public, distract, divide, and demoralize communities, and control a narrative, all for financial, political, or ideological gain. Next slide. How can you tell if a source is reliable? For a news article, video, or social media post, ask yourself the following questions. Next slide. Does it back up its statements with links to independent experts with relevant knowledge or references to peer-reviewed science? Does it fairly present differing points of view while acknowledging the importance of expertise? Does it treat individuals who have differing perspectives with respect? Does it distinguish facts from opinions? Is the content free from racial, gendered, ableist, anti-LGBTQ+, or otherwise problematic stereotypes? Does it make it easy to identify funding sources or ideological or policy positions? If you answered no to one or more of the questions, think twice before you share their claims. Your next step is to check for credible sources. Next. Oh, well, not quite next. If you spotted disinformation, it's crucial to understand how to effectively counter it. First, and most importantly, do not share or amplify it in any way, even if it is to correct or debunk the false claim. We want to stop disinformation in its tracks, not spread the disinformation further and help advance the goals of the bad actors behind it. Next slide. Thank you. And please remember to use the strategies we discussed tonight. Now it's time for questions. So
Barb, do you want people to raise their virtual hand?
I think maybe they have to use the raise hand function if they can do that, because when we have more than one screen, we can't see everybody's hands.
Sounds good. So you can raise your virtual hand.
So if you go to reactions, which is a round circle on the bottom, and click on that, then you can get to raise hand.
I think you just did such a great job, Barb. has any questions.
I think, you know what I think people are doing? They're thinking back on the mistakes they've made. I know I did that, but we shouldn't beat ourselves up about the fact that we fell into the trap. I mean, based on a lot of psychological tricks, the bad actors know how to get us, and they've been doing it for a long time. And sometimes I know we feel very discouraged that we thought we won an issue and then it comes back and we have to start all over. And we do like to mock and debunk other people. So
And I want to point out that Barb put links in the chat. If you grab the scroll bar and scroll back, it was
I
put
don't know how
in the
you
chat first.
put your hand up.
For those who missed it, I reposted what Barb put in there.
See, one woman did it.
So you'll see it.
happened to
Lucille,
it?
are you speaking? Are you looking to raise your hand?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to find out how to put my hand up and I forgot that I had my speaker on.
Okay, yeah. It looks like Paula has her hand up.
yeah, I see that.
Yes, I was wondering if anyone had any practical examples of what you might say. I mean, the slides were great, but they were technical, intellectual versus you're having a conversation with someone, and it might be a dear loved one, unfortunately, that's still talking about the 2020 election. What would be the kind of statement that you could make to get to shared values? And I mean, you say you shouldn't say you're wrong or, counter them, but what could you say to try and get to a common ground?
I'm thinking that you can say, oh, you seem really upset about that. And, maybe even why, what have you heard that makes you feel that that's so? Or something like that, rather than being confrontational. And then if you can slip in something like, like when I've watched television and I watched the counting of the Electoral College votes, it seemed pretty clear to me that Joe Biden had won. But so you could say, are you feeling like your side lost? Are you feeling discouraged? Or, switch it to the emotion, I think. And I'm not sure that you can actually, and I know you can't win over everybody, so.
Looks like
Pat
Lucille
Maxon has her hand
Oh,
up.
Pat, okay.
I was just gonna agree with what Barb just said. I had a desk mate who was straight across from me in a workplace, and we always knew we absolutely were going to disagree about things. And she would be coming in very charged up about something she heard on the news, etc. And I said some of the things Barb said, but I always ended up saying, and not to make a quote, but to basically at the end say, I don't think that, that I think something different, right? And it's so that they always know, because what Sabrina was talking about is interpersonal relationships. We're going to talk about world events, but by the end of the conversation, I'm going to reiterate that, I'm a peacenik social worker. You know how I am. That's me. So I don't agree about the fact, but I'm here, I'm talking to you.
Okay, now Lucille has her hand up again. So do you want to say something to Pat?
Okay, unmute. All right, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so I just have a question, like disinformation, who decides what's disinformation? Because can to one person something seem like not disinformation where the other person thinks it is disinformation?
Yeah, I mean, say you're reading an article in a magazine and it says, I don't know, that say electric cars really have a lot of problems. You know, you can't, it's hard to find a place to charge them. The batteries are hard to recycle. And we shouldn't do anything with electric cars. And so if you, with a person who says something like that, you can say, well, you know, maybe we can overcome some of those problems and, you know, keep an open mind about it. People said that about cars, you know, that they would really we be so bad for the country when we were using horses. And so maybe just think about it a different way.
Well,
I don't think I answered your question.
Well, I would add, Barb, I mean, because Lucille asked about disinformation. Disinformation is about intent.
Yeah,
So disinformation, if a person is purposefully trying to misinform, that's disinformation. So I would say, you know, that is what it is. Misinformation, someone could think that they have the right information and be spreading wrong information. And it's not that they're trying to, you know, be deceitful. They're just, this is what they believe. And so they're spreading it. So those are two different things.
Suppose within the what you're saying is disinformation, suppose there is correct information that they sprinkle in there as well. Like what they were saying about the cars, a lot of that is actually true, but then, you know, is it something we can overcome? So
right,
what
but disinformation is about purposefully trying to misinform for whatever reason, whether it's political gain, financial gain, you know, accolades, I don't know, you know, it's trying to misinform on purpose. That's disinformation. So those are like what she was talking about, bad actors.
Christine has her hand up. Can you?
Hi, you know, this is, I feel like I could never stop. I could never get enough of these because it's such a facet of our life about dealing with misinformation, lies, and everything else. I'm kind of curious what you think, because I heard a phrase which struck me as very powerful, which is that gossip is a form of terrorism. And I kind of like, and you know, people like to gossip, you like to chit chat. And I mean, I'm not talking about like virulent gossip. Misinformation is a form of gossip. It's a form of terrorism. You know, even, you know, and even if it's unintentional, it might just fall under the category of gossip. So I don't know. I tell people like, I don't like gossip, like, but I think people think I'm like kind of high and mighty and like, you know, why doesn't she, like, who does she think she is? And I wonder how you would suggest, like, because I think that's appropriate direction to go in when people want to share things about other people that I don't know, or, and I mean, that hasn't happened recently, but I do feel it's like, okay to say, you know, I don't want to be engaged in gossip, but it does sometimes feel like somebody thinks I'm arrogant for saying that. I don't know. It's about setting boundaries.
Yeah, I would think so, but, and I don't think gossip is necessarily disinformation. It's information about other people, and whether it's true or not is up for grabs. And then you have to use, I mean, and some can be honest mistakes, and some can be attempts to manipulate you.
Right.
So, you know, you can avoid that either consequence by just avoiding gossip. And that's
Right.
kind of like, just by not engaging on social media, you're helping to stop spreading disinformation. But then what the Union of Concerned Scientists is saying, but we want to, besides not spread it, we want to be spreading information and about things that we care about.
Mm.
And
Well,
that
and
one of,
I was going to add, Christine, when I was in grad school for lighting design, I one time was starting to engage in gossip. And a colleague of mine who was in the directing program, his background was in social work. So he had the tools to be able to handle the situation. So I wanted to share with you what he did with me. And I was able to take in the information and learn and grow from that. So I think it's a valid way to deal with it. He just turned it around to himself. He said, grad school is so stressful. I'm having a hard time even dealing with this. I've made it a personal policy that I don't talk about anyone behind their back.
Mm.
And it's just, I hope that you understand that that's something that I'm doing for myself. And I was totally able to I was like, oh yeah, of course. Why am I even doing this? And I completely stopped doing it, So I think
Yeah.
if you make it about yourself
Yeah.
and not about the other person and what your needs are, like you said, it's about boundaries.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a way of doing it. And maybe I need to consider that in other areas, even if I may not be reacting, like say, well, is this a form of gossip, even if it's just a tweet, right? Because I don't like gossip. And so it could be, but I don't want to sound arrogant, but if I'm just tweeting something, I'm not even, it goes right into the ether. So, but that's a good way of suggesting it, because I know it could sound harsh, and sometimes I have to really remember to step back and soften something when all I'm just saying is like, yeah, I don't have the time for it. But that sounds like I'm being judgmental. But anyway, thanks for that. That's a very good suggestion, and I appreciate it. And because this is such an important topic, it's impacting so many of our lives in so many different ways, and our politics and businesses go under. And I mean, it's really amazing.
well, it is a big problem in our society. Certainly we saw it with the activities on January 6th, that so many people were obviously convinced that they were doing the right thing when they were attacking our government. Oh, Amy put her thumbs up. I wonder if she meant to put her.
Hi, I had my hand up.
Oh, okay, Ann, go ahead, but I
Are we
didn't see it.
supposed to use our Zoom hand or just sort of wave at
Well,
the camera?
if you can, it doesn't matter. I see that I can look at the participants list, but I can't even get the whole participants list up at one time. So to see the
Okay.
hand. So just go ahead and ask your question, Ann.
Okay, I just want to say this I found to be very valuable. It really has focused my thinking. I want to say that shortly before the last election, the maintenance man in this building, who was having some physical problems, said to me, in all truth, the truth of believing. He was a believer. And he said to me, I don't know what's going to happen if Joe Biden gets elected, because he's going to cancel all private insurance policies. And I didn't quite know what to say to that. And I finally came up with, well, boy, let's see, the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals, the insurance companies, who else is going to be really mad? And you're really going to be mad at him, aren't you? And it kind of diffused it, but that was an issue that I wasn't really angry about. I mean, I felt badly that he was so misinformed, So I was able to kind of turn it around into, let's keep it light. And he did laugh, incidentally. However, when it comes to things like the kind of vicious misinformation, like those policemen who died protecting the Capitol, it wasn't real. I have a really hard time. There's no way I can kind of turn it around. Somebody wants to argue economic policy with me and they're full of soup. I can usually deal with that even if they're coming on with a real stupid MAGA argument, and you should forgive me. I suppose I shouldn't be talking actual politics. I'm sorry. But the thing is, the things I get really angry about, that's where I get so angry that either I'm going to attack or I become paralyzed. And I don't seem to be able to find a middle ground. And actually, I found tonight very helpful because we're really talking about how to find this middle ground. Thank you, everybody.
I would just add to that when you're in a situation where you're feeling that you're overwhelmed and angry, that's a part of the strategy that we've learned now is in the disinformation thing. And so the best thing you can do at that point is to change the subject, tell a joke, walk away, something, not really engage with that person and that subject at that time. I think.
Yeah. I know that's.
And don't forget, I'm not the expert. I just was presenting the stuff that the Union of Concerned Scientists, I believe it, but I am certainly not an expert.
Yeah, no, I believe that there is probably a middle ground. I mean, the emotional ability to tap into that at the moment is sometimes a little difficult when it is a very emotionally charged issue. There are a lot of issues that are maybe ridiculous, but they're not that emotionally charged,
Barb, it looks like we've got like 3 people with their hands up. We got Quincy, then Kathleen, and then Janice.
Do
Take
you
it
know
away,
what
Q.
order they were in?
Oh,
Okay.
it's Quincy. I think that's about everything. Whether you're talking relative to anything that you find yourself with push buttons, and you know what your own buttons are, and you know when your buttons have been pushed, you don't respond until after your spirit's a bit clean. And I think that that's the way that I approach it. It's like, not everything that pushes my buttons needs to be responded to at the moment. It's often better for me to go away and look at why I'm feeling a certain way, whether it be about racial things or whether it be about almost any topic. And I find that really helps me make a decision, because sometimes people intentionally push your buttons because they know you're gonna lose it. And they don't even have to know you very well. You can just kind of feel it. And that's what I think these disinformation guys do really well. And hopefully I'll be more immune in the future.
Well,
Thank
I think maybe we'll all think a little bit more before we respond.
Yep.
Caitlin.
You're
Kathleen, you're
muted.
muted.
You're muted.
There we go. I like what's been said about sometimes you just have to walk away. I'm in a family that's very divided politically. I'm at one end of the spectrum and a brother-in-law is at the far other end of the spectrum. And last year at Thanksgiving, we all got together for Thanksgiving dinner. And our rules, one of our big rules of family dinners is no politics. We just have to do that because if we don't, it's going to be a nasty Thanksgiving. And they got going and going and going. And I just said, look, we say no politics. I can't do this and eat Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going in the living room. Let me know when you're done discussing things and I'll be back. And it took about 2 minutes before somebody came in and said, yeah, you're right. We agreed. We'll change the subject. And the other time it happened was years ago. I'm a veteran. I spent 5 years in the Army. And I was part of the honor guard at the Solomon Cemetery up in Saratoga. And it got to be untenable after a while. There was one day, all the men there, I was the only woman in the unit, got talking about people who are on welfare, people who get food stamps, who get SNAP, who live in subsidized housing, who get Medicaid, and how they're all worthless, useless drains on society. No, I get all those things. I'm a poster child for a low fixed income senior. And so I finally just looked at them and said, look, I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about me. I get all those things. And kind of forced them into silence for a few minutes. Oh, no, Kathy, we don't mean that about you. We mean that about all those other people. I said, I'm exactly the same as all those other people. I said, so I appreciate it. You don't refer to us in that tone. And I thought for me, that was the best way to handle it. It wasn't giving statistics. It wasn't giving anything like that. It was giving, this is you talking about me personally. I appreciate that you can't judge people like that. So that's usually the way I handle it, either telling a personal story or just saying, look, I'm just gonna have to leave. I can't deal with it. Sometimes.
Well, telling a personal story.
What?
Telling a personal story is one of the very best ways to get your agenda across.
Right. And I found that, when people get going about people who are on, who get public assistance of any kind, I just say, it's not because people don't work. I've worked my whole life. Sometimes just, and if I may use a word in this instance, shit happens. Sometimes things just happen. You can't blame people. Things just happen. So do your research before you make any comments. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. That's a really good example. Janice, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I did, but Quincy and Kathleen both pretty much said what I was going to say. It took me quite a while to be able to disengage, and that's that's how I protect myself. If somebody is either on Facebook or social media or even in person, if they start doing that kind of thing, I just say whatever the issue is, I just state my feelings and say, and that's all I'm going to say about it. And just stop the discussion that way if I can, and if not, just walk away. But it took practice for me to be able to do that. It didn't happen overnight. So I just want everybody to know that it's not just because we've watched this video, it's not going to change us right today. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So hopefully, is this going to be available on the league website, the video?
Yeah,
like this?
it's
Oh,
being recorded.
Good, because then I can watch it over and over again and reinforce myself. So that's all. Thanks.
And actually, there in the chat, there were all those resources. And if you you can click on the slides that had the links, and some of the slides also, like if you click on the link that it says report to social media, if you actually, those are live links, and I think that I copied into that so that they're definitely in what I put in the chat, but I think also in the slide presentation, if you click on those, you will get to those underlying research articles.
Barb, the only thing that actually created a link was the Scientific American link that you provided. The others didn't actually provide a hot link. And if you're going to share the slides, you may want to give those to Chris and myself so we can get them out there to people.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we
The
can put the
slide-
PowerPoint.
well, what?
We could put the PowerPoint on the website, right?
Yeah, well, Chris could, not me.
Yeah, and the PowerPoint, I think maybe everyone noticed that Barb put like with the link, then it tells you where to queue up to be able to listen to that particular portion if you don't want to, watch the whole presentation. And also I wanted to point out that 2 years ago, so we have if you go to our event page and click on event videos from 2021, March 2021, we have a recording entitled How Social Media is Endangering Democracy, Mental Health, and Relationships. So there's like a sister recording. It's interesting that it's 2 years later because that was also a March meetup that we're on this topic or similar topic again. And that's taken from the video, social media video. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but yeah, so you
Center
might
for
want to check that out.
Humane something or other technology.
Yeah, focused on the Center for Humane Technology, which is trying to counteract all the negativity on social media.
And a few years ago, I want to say it's almost 3 years ago now, after the national convention, I think we did a presentation on cybersecurity. And the focus on that really was on, how election fraud is not what people think it is. It's not people going out there and messing with our voting machines. It's people going out there and messing with the voters. And it's the type of AI that they're able to employ to convince you saw something or didn't see something, or heard something or didn't hear something. That is really alarming. And I think that, that misinformation versus disinformation and someone insisting that they saw and heard something is very difficult to combat. And trying to use your own logic and resources to research the truth is getting harder and harder. And it's a little scary to think about how this is happening, and it's happening so quickly. And everything you hear about chatbots and AI and how helpful it can be, it can also be something we have to watch out for. And I think we recorded that event too. That was, I can't remember what we called it, but I want to say we did it in the fall of 2021, maybe 2020. Fall of 2020. I think that's right.
Well, and I think we're going to see more and more disinformation because when people feel that they can't win over people with logic or whatever, and their only hope is to trick people, then they will do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they will attempt it, and that's why we need to be vigilant. And I think, one of the hardest things is not to repeat the disinformation when you're saying that you don't believe it. I mean, you have to really think about how you're going to phrase what you're going to say. And I think that whole notion of not actually engaging with it, and instead, when you see something that seems really ridiculous, say something like, you know, the COVID shots really kill people. And of course, that is true to a certain extent, but not, I mean, but that you need to sort of look at that and step back from that information and maybe tell a story about somebody who got a COVID shot and then their people that they were working with all came down with COVID, but they didn't. You know, just say that. Don't say anything about the shot not working or whatever. But I think it takes some time to think of how can you phrase a story that addresses that problem without ever repeating it.
Looks like Susan Hamlin has her hand up.
Oh, yeah.
Hi there. This is great, and I couldn't believe the timing here. I'm going to drop an email that just came in yesterday to the Saratoga, the president's email at Saratoga, and without comment. Here it is. It's in the chat now.
We know the person who sent the comment. Does that matter?
I don't, I've heard the name, but I don't know the person.
That's Jim Kunstler. He's written a number of books. The most recent, I think, was about planning. He's sort of environmental generally.
Is he
Planning.
Is there particular something that he's referring? I don't know what that.
It's
out of context to me.
I'm wondering if he was referring to tonight's program or something.
Your misinformation campaign is dishonest and shameful. It appears that you are really against free speech.
I don't think that would be about this because it hadn't even happened yet. So I don't know what he's referring to.
I don't either.
I don't either. I just thought the coincidence.
I don't think we have a misinformation campaign. So.
Well, here's an example then of you don't even get enough information to even respond. I'm not going to respond to this, but you don't get enough information even to know the point of it. It's just that you do disinformation, or you do misinformation as the message.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
I'm going to call on Paula.
I was thinking back to a Zoom similar to this, but that focused more, that then went into what are the kinds of things that you would say if the encounter was in person. And it seems to me that, and it had to do with, say you were going door to door for voting, or and the person that answers or that comes up to you at a register to vote booth has a very different opinion and is excited about it. That first you validate them. I can see that this is an issue that has you really upset, and start with that so that you're not starting from an antagonistic, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I don't agree with you. But first validate that for them, the issue is important. And then see at that point if you can get below that and why they're thinking it, so that maybe you can get into an engaging conversation. But if you start out with a pushback, you're not going to get anywhere. I wish I could remember more from it was very good. I wish I remembered more of it, but it was a lot of the practical ways that you could try and turn around a conversation to connect.
Anne, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, you know, it was mentioned very briefly that we should think more positively, have a more positive issue. Everything doesn't have to be doom and gloom. I think that's the way she put it. And that is one of the things that I find I can really laugh out loud sometimes at some of the ridiculous things that happens in politics. And I'm not talking about mean laughing. I'm talking about genuine laughing. Because we're just all people who are trying our best to get a little edge on our philosophy and our beliefs. And our government is just the reflection of a philosophy of governance. And one of the reasons I don't watch them all the time, but I try to catch a couple of times a week the late night comics, because they always put a ridiculous spin on, yes, politics, but it's also about us. And when I'm talking to somebody, I really do like to get at that place. If I'm not too angry, as I said earlier, that there are certain things I'm not very good at. But if I'm not too angry, I like to get at that place where we can just be a lot more relaxed. I want to just say that Amy Klobuchar has written a book, which I have not read yet because it's not out in audio yet. But it's called The Joy of Politics. And I have no idea how good it is, but I just couldn't resist the title. Thanks, folks. This has been a really good discussion. I've loved it.
So if nobody has another burning comment, Christine, did you get yours answered?
Thank you for coming back to me. I thought I had taken my hand down, so my apologies, but very helpful. And, you know, we'll figure this out. I mean, short of burning my Twitter and Facebook, you know, we all become hermits and just send smoke signals to each other.
No, that's not what we should be doing. We should be telling our own stories and posting them on whatever social media we use. I mean, along with those pictures of our travels and our flowers and then our kids and grandkids, we should post things that we are happy about, that we think are important.
And share links to our recorded events.
Yes.
Yes. And it looks
Okay,
like,
Lori, do you have some?
yeah, just one more thing. Somebody, Amy put in the chat, just pointing that out to everyone, that the League of Women Voters of Albany had a speaker in January on this topic. He quoted from a book he was reading related to the topic called The Chaos Machine by the Inside Story of How Social Media Rewired Our Minds and Our World. So that might be something people want to pick up for some more reading, deeper reading. All right, well, thanks to everyone. Thank you, Barb, for doing all that research and putting all that together.
Thank you, Lori, for figuring out those videos.
We had fun doing our technical rehearsals. And thanks to all the people from other leagues who joined us tonight. And those of you who aren't members, reminder, you can join us. So visit our website to get more information. All right, everybody have a good night. Thanks, Monica,
Thanks,
for
Barb.
hosting.
Thanks,
Good night,
Lori.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Monica.
everybody.